Hey there. I wanted to pop on today and share a little manifesting story that I think is really helpful in explaining how the law of attraction works, how we manifest the joyous things in our lives, and also some common misunderstandings that I think can sometimes crop up around the law of attraction and also just that process of life itself. And I especially want to share this story because it's relevant to this week's episode on the Intuitive podcast, on the Intuitive Connection podcast, which is all about this question of if I have an idea, if I have a desire, if I have something I want to do, if I have a goal, and then as I move forward onto it, I experience some resistance, things don't initially go exactly as I want them to go, does that mean, that it's not meant to be? That it's not meant to be. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to share a story that happened to me, and it's so crazy how it's so relevant to this week's podcast because my life always seems to work out that way. But I wanted to share it because I think it's super cool and super magical. So what happened is I'm making a trip to the East Coast to visit some family and see my clients and do some teaching. And I booked my seats way in advance. And when I fly, I used all of my miles to fly on JetBlue Airlines. And JetBlue Airlines has these very special, magical seats that I reserved, months in advance. And then after I booked my flight, I found out that my cousin was having his 60th birthday party the day before. And so I was trying to change my flights, but I didn't want to give up my seat. So for about the last 2 months, I have been checking every couple of days to see if the seats that I wanted opened up. Okay. And with this understanding that if I am meant to go to his event, that those seats will open up for me. Right. And have you guys ever done that? Have you ever thought like, if it's meant to be, it will flow? Right. And that's sort of how I was operating. But a couple of other things were happening in my mind. For example, I just kept thinking, like, I really want to spend a few days in New York. My cousin's in New York City. I'm going to Connecticut, but I really want to spend a couple of days in New York City. And I could come back and do it another time, but I'm going to be there. And so this was making me even more want my seats to open up so that I could spend 2 days in New York City, which is like just the perfect amount that I was looking for. But it wasn't really happening. And so I was checking, and then it occurred to me to check my Airbnb reservation in Connecticut because I made a change in how I wanted to do things, and I wanted to make sure that I changed the dates. So when I logged into Airbnb, I discovered I had not made that change. And so what that meant was I was one night, the night I flew in, I did not have a hotel room. I think I had one at JFK, which was my original plan to fly into JFK, spend the night, rent a car, drive out the next day. And then I decided it's easier just to get a ride from the airport and rent the car in Connecticut. So anyway, now I'm like, not really sure what I want to do. I don't really want to spend the night in JFK, and I really want to go to New York City. So I tuned in, and I said, look, for a while, there were no seats available at all in the cabin that I wanted. But now, lo and behold, there was one seat available. It was probably the worst seat in the cabin, but still a perfectly fine seat to fly. It's only 4.5 hours. It was going to be fine. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm so excited to go. I changed my flights. I got a hotel in New York. I bought some theater tickets to take my daughter to the theater. My son opened up his schedule because he's living in New York, so he can go to this party with me. I was getting so excited. I bought museum tickets. I was like, yay, I'm going to New York. And then the next day, I said, well, let me just, you never know, right? So I checked back in to JetBlue, and lo and behold, the seat that I wanted became available. Now, I want you to pause for a minute and hear that. The seat that I wanted became available. I've been waiting for 2 months, checking in every couple of days for my seat, saying, if it's meant to be, that seat will arrive, right? But because I was doing that, I was putting up resistance to getting that seat, right? I was hinging my whole trip, something that I was starting to want increasingly more and more on having that particular seat. And in putting so much energy into needing to have that particular seat, I was blocking the flow of that seat coming right into my lap, or my lap going right into that seat. Right? The moment I was able to say I'm going anyway, and got really excited about going anyway, and even got, at peace with sitting in that seat, right? The exact thing that I wanted came my way. And that is often how it flows with the law of attraction. When we release the need to have something, when we tune into what will bring us joy, when we allow ourselves to go with the flow in the most exciting and delightful way, oftentimes, if not always, the cooperative components, just the things that we desire, line up for us in a beautiful and magical way. So I wanted to share that story because it's so cool, but also because it dovetails so nicely with this week's episode, which is all about that idea that we sometimes attribute the right and wrongness of our choices to what we experience in life. And more importantly, the right or wrongness of what we want, right? And once we learn to follow our desires, right, and follow them joyously without condition, that is when life often, always shows up for us in the most delightful and magical ways. So I hope this was as helpful for you as it was for me. And I will be enjoying my flight across the country in a couple of weeks. And if y'all are in Connecticut, I hope to see you there. Have a wonderful day and namaste.